This is Elias Dufexes. You're watching That Tom Clancy Show.
Why, hello, everybody, and welcome to another brand new episode of That Tom Clancy Show. I am, of course, your lovable robot host who's only slightly lost in their own set, That Tom Clancy. Thank you all for joining us on this lovely Wednesday evening. What? It's 2020, the time of forgetting what every day of the week is and thinking that you're in like December 2022 when in fact you're only midway through October. Fun times, right? So, well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. I know that this week has been stupid for the way my show has been being run. I think a better and more appropriate word might even be unprofessional. And you'd be right. But that's neither here nor there. Because the important thing is, today we have a guest, which I am so happy to have on the show. As some of you might imagine, for whatever reason, people like to hear my opinion on books. And generally those people are my friends. And I don't like reading my friends' books because I don't want to tell them I don't like it. You know, hey, maybe it's just like a stupid thing and like I should get over it or something like that. But it's the truth. So you can imagine my surprise when I picked up tonight's guest book, who is a friend of mine, and I liked it. And more than liked it, I freaking loved this book. So tonight, we are joined by a very special guest, a longtime internet friend of mine who I am so happy to have here on the couch. Bits and Pixels, please welcome me, or join me in welcoming tonight's guest, the author of the brand new book, Hench, Natalie Zena Walshots.
Hello.
Hey.
Thank you so much for having me and for that immensely flattering introduction.
I'm sitting there and I'm like halfway through that introduction. I'm like, oh my God, this is terrible.
No, you did great.
Yeah, I should have
Again, just
like
flattery all the way. That's all I'm asking.
you know, I should have written something beforehand, but I was busy playing Among Us, and I still have never been the imposter. But I tell you, I am like the best crew member to do tasks and figure out who the imposters are.
I feel like as much as I love the idea of Among Us, I really want the sort of like Animal Crossing version of Among Us where there's no imposter and I just do small tasks that I can eat for that little tiny squeeze of dopamine.
Isn't it just called Animal Crossing?
I mean, yeah, I guess that's true. My pumpkins are coming along beautifully, by the way.
Nice. I'm glad to hear it. I have never gotten into Animal Crossing.
It was one of the things, especially at the beginning of lockdown, that how to phrase this, gave me a reason to go on. I mean, that's extremely dramatic, but it was very, very soothing, I think, during a moment where I deeply needed to be soothed.
I can 100% understand that. Not with that game, but I get it. A pretty much the mutual friend of ours tried to get me to play Stardew Valley. Nope.
Oh yeah, also lovely.
Yeah, she swears by it, of course, as we both know. Our mutual friend of ours is she. I can't remember. I can never remember if she plays guitar or bass, but you know.
Right, she plays baritone guitar actually, which no, you're not wrong to be mega confused by this. It's a very unique instrument. Hers was hand built for her, but it is a baritone guitar because a bass is actually a bass guitar, and you never think of it as like a tenor guitar, but a regular guitar is in that range. So it's kind of in between a guitar and a bass.
Why? Yeah. I don't,
Deep lore.
God, it's
Deep heavy metal lore with Natalie Zed.
and like I'm super down for it, because I love learning new things all the time. But like I just thought there were guitars and bass guitars, like how there are flutes and piccolos. Like there's not like flutelos.
There's probably like 8 like micro steps of instrument between these things that I also do not know.
Yeah. So she plays what, like the viola of guitars then?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll have to check,
Okay.
but like
That's
I
pretty
think
cool.
I think that's fair from a non like musical playing person. That
We're in that same boat.
sounds right.
We're words people.
We are words people.
Words
Wordsmiths,
Yeah.
one might say. But
yeah.
that's definitely my strength is nothing performing, musically speaking anyway.
Yeah. Like I can understand that entirely. Real quick though, Nick, thank you for joining us. Sad you can't hang out because I'm pretty sure I could come up with some way for trolling you for your love of Blender. And Yaxon, I don't know how to pronounce that, but we were actually, Yaxon was one of the people I was playing Among Us with just a bit ago. And we're on the same page here, man. We had each other's back. So, because that's one of the things I love about that game is like, I'm one of those people that tends to make friends quickly and be very trusting of others, despite the fact that I am like 80% of the time generally disappointed with humanity. But I always I want to believe, and so it's like I in games like Among Us, I'm like, I know that like there's a fairly decent chance that this person's going to kill me. But
right. Like in a we live in a society kind of way.
Yeah, but I also know that there's a better chance that they're not, and that their presence is going to help me out. And that Yaxon was one of those people that like, and it worked out. It worked out. Skiva, thank you for joining us. Wonderful to see you here, and you're here early for once. Like we're not about to end the show. This is weird. Skiva in chat is a host of another virtual reality podcast. He tends to show up in the last 5 to 10 minutes of the show. So I guess we're ending early today, but
well, gotta go.
Yeah, sorry. Well, before we get into talking about Hench, which I can't wait for, by the way, if you couldn't tell by my incessant messages to you while I was reading it.
It sustains me that is the fuel with which I burn to continue forward.
Nice. The first question I ask all my guests, and I know that this is a good question for you, is what game are you currently playing?
Oh, I have played not exaggerating at all, about 75 hours of No Man's Sky in the last few weeks. There was a recent update that is excellent. We're 4 years in somehow. Like I got the game, I played like 10 hours and abandoned it. There was an update a couple of years ago that I played maybe 20 or 30 hours of, and same sort of thing. But it's the world of exploring different planets and taking pictures of weird animals has like, it's been a better place than it ever has been before. So I'm finding that super both like relaxing and exciting.
I always kind of find myself wanting to get back into No Man's Sky, because I also bought it at launch, and I played probably about 10 to 20 hours or so of it. I was really kind of digging the like Atlas narrative that they were kind of hinting at, and because I really love those kind of like weird, obtuse kind of mysteries.
Right.
It's one of the main reasons why I like the original story of Destiny so much, because so much of it was left so wide open and you could interpret so much. And, it's
Right.
a whole other show right there.
Yeah, I can talk about Destiny lore for like 7,000 hours for sure.
While we're doing that, why don't we get like Braden on here and just
Oh my god, yeah, just go deep, have a like Destiny family reunion. If you want to talk about Hive lore for like 6 hours, I'm really fun at parties.
I love the Hive. They are such an excellent villain.
So
I
weird.
love the treatment Savathun is getting right now.
Me too. It's so exciting. I'm so here for the Witch Queen. The unquestionably the scariest thing that's ever happened in Destiny for me personally was the Omnigul encounter.
God,
And
that
it
scream.
feels oh my god, when Shadowkeep dropped,
God.
And the new strike was introduced, like the first time I heard the scream, which is very very similar to the Omnigul scream, I actually had a full body like PTSD reaction to like the horror of that scream. So
yeah,
good job. Good job, Bungie.
Tito, thank you for the sub.
Hey.
Yeah, that was the other person I was playing Among Us with. And of course,
Excellent.
Hey, Tim, how's it going? But yeah, I mean, it's just like, thankfully nothing has been as hard as the Omnigul strike.
No, like having to do that from 2 rooms away, like picking off individual thrall with a sniper rifle,
or
is,
in my case, a hung jury, because it was the best scout rifle.
It was an extremely good scout rifle. I've always been a sniper person, so my patience, I still miss my patience in time. Very much.
I was hoping that when they did the tease last week for the exotics that it was going to be patience in time, but I knew it wasn't going to be. But I wanted it to be so bad.
I wanted it to be so bad.
Because I also, like, I love the look of that gun, and like the exotic perk is kind of whatever, but just it looks like a proper sniper rifle.
It looks like a real ass sniper rifle, and the I like the exotic perk a lot. As somebody who prefers to, like, I've never been a like a rapid hit sniper person. Like I see their place for sure, but I much prefer to like take my time and hit like one great shot than like kind of spam 5 and hope for the best. And so being able to take that time is something I miss a lot.
I can see that. Yeah. But yeah, and No Land Beyond. That gun was garbage, but I loved it. It was just stupid. I've been playing a lot of Monte Carlo because I like to play in-your-face Titan. And so Monte Carlo is just, it's my jam. And I still love my Recluse. I still love my Mida mini tool. Like those
classics, good, like absolute classics.
Yeah, those 900 RPM SMGs, they will like pretty much always be my go-to. Like I don't care if they're meta or not. It's the way I have fun.
No, it's whatever you like using, right? Like that's 100% what like the way I've always played, and I think what feels the best. Like I've never and 'tis the season, I've never felt like an auto rifle as good as Horror Story, just because of the way that it feels. Like just because of like the sound and the muzzle flash and the like everything about it is just very comforting for me.
I got 2 of those in the same Haunted Forest run and I still haven't touched them.
It's really good. Like, and again, it's 100% a feel thing, right? Like it's just like I enjoy using this.
Yeah, I mean, I get that entirely. I prefer like the 600 or higher ARs, but I mean that's just it's all about preference,
right?
Yeah. God, I love Destiny. I really just started getting back into it in the last couple weeks, so it's like I'm just trying to get like those last couple things done before the next expansion drops.
Right.
And
Well, it is spooky season, so it's a really good time to do it.
it is. It absolutely is. Hey, if anybody out there plays Destiny on PC, maybe we can get some Haunted Forest runs going on the stream sometime. Call me. Here, that gets a laugh. Well, we're not here to talk about Destiny, unfortunately.
Sadly,
Instead,
no.
we're here to talk about this lovely book that has come out within the last few weeks, which you happen to have written.
It just so happens.
It just so happens that you wrote it, and it's good because that you're on the day I want to talk about it.
Right. Yeah. And it just worked out that way. It's really convenient.
Yeah. So you wrote this book called Hench, which is I explained it to a friend of mine as fighting superheroes with spreadsheets.
That sounds about right. Yeah, I feel like that's accurate for sure. And data science and just spite, fueled by spite, also extremely important. But I think that's a very fair summary.
Yeah. There's a lot of spite in that book.
It comes from a real place.
I can imagine. I mean, I've never known any writer who's ever written about their personal experiences and things. They all write completely made up people, and it has absolutely nothing to do with their real lives at all.
Not at all vaguely an autobiography.
Look, I'm not going to lie and say that I didn't hear your voice in my head when I was reading the book.
I'm glad that you did. I mean, then I've done something right? Like if you knowing me, if you hear me, that means that there's something distinct about that's bled through. So I'm really glad to hear that. I'm amped.
Nice. I got to make your day twice today.
You did.
On a roll. So aside from like it kind of came out at a really interesting time too, which I'm sure that the publishers didn't intend at all, aside from just 2020 being 2020, but then also with The Boys coming out at like the same time.
Yeah, I mean, all of that just worked out in a way that I definitely was not expecting, and like could not have been planned if we tried it. Like certainly not. But we've sort of quite a while ago, when I was pushing through the first draft, so maybe like 2016 2017, I took a scene to a critique group that I'm a part of, and I remember one of my colleagues there saying like, I don't, you finish this as soon as you can, because I'm not sure how much longer this superhero moment that we're having is going to last, and you want to capitalize on that. It took me a couple more years to finish the book. So happily, the moment did not evaporate, and it still feels timely. It does not feel late. But I think what did happen is we got kind of deep enough into superhero lore and kind of immersed enough into superhero culture that the critiques about it that are starting to happen now are fairly sophisticated. Right, like that people are interested in kind of looking behind the mask or looking at narratives that are adjacent to it. And you see this in things like shows that are more focused more on Gotham PD than on Batman, right? Or like there's more media that is kind of exploring, or even the recent shows like Jessica Jones and Daredevil, and Luke Cage that explore kind of not universe ending events, but kind of neighborhood centric events, and are kind of like more boots on the ground, like lower tier heroes even. And I think that's much more interesting after years and years of blockbusters.
They make these characters they're regular people too. I mean, it's like, I mean, Tony Stark is a regular person, and but
sure,
nothing he does is is regular. I mean, even Captain America, who is the literal normal guy out of the entirety of the Avengers, even he doesn't, there's not an episode about him going to a Chinese restaurant. There's not an episode about, friends telling him that like he has a drinking problem and him not listening. There's yeah,
totally. There's a lot of fan fiction about that though, which is something that is very important to me, and is also a kind of a I guess like a place for writing that I've paid a lot of attention to over the years. Because there's so many stories like that are like, what if the Avengers hanging out, or like what if these sort of quieter moments of interiority. And there's obviously a desire for this different kind of intimacy, to kind of explore hero narratives that aren't, like all throwing cars through buildings, that are a little bit more like, what are these like more intimate or quiet moments like? And if there's so many stories like this, if there's this huge volume of fan fiction that explores narratives like that, then there must be a need for it, or there must be an appetite for it.
Yeah. And like, honestly, I think one of the first things that kind of made me pay attention to it was there was that, like, bootleg isn't the right word, but the unofficial Punisher short film that Tom Jane made, where it was Frank Castle doing his laundry. And like, I mean, it's literally he's doing his laundry, but then shit hits the fan. And like, I'm down for that. Like, I would love to see like a story arc in Captain America, or not Thor, because nothing Thor does could ever be normal. But like one of those arcs where it's like
There
literally
is no
just
normal.
yeah, like Steve Rogers has to figure out taxes. Like, oh no, he's getting audited.
Right.
Well,
but here's the thing, like, and this is part of the whole thing, but that I think I'm trying to explore in the book. But heroes no longer function as normal people, right? They can't, right? Like Captain America, like Steve Rogers doesn't do his own laundry. Like there's absolutely no way. Frank Castle sure does, but anyone at the tier of the Avengers is sort of insulated from real life by so many layers, and whether that's support staff, or whether that's shield, or whether that's whatever, there's all these layers of infrastructure between them and normal life, that they're on one hand they're kind of kept separate from it, but on the other they kind of can't function in that space anymore either. And you see that explored a little bit on say like Daredevil or Jessica Jones as well. I know I brought them up before, but like their personal lives, their actual lives that they're trying to lead, are disasters, right? Like are complete
so
on fire, like shit shows the whole time.
well, except for Luke Cage, strangely enough.
No, that's true. He's got his shit on lock. Like that's
I mean,
absolutely true.
he cheats though,
Like
because he gets like Rosario Dawson as his friend, who's already like had to deal with Daredevil. She's already had to deal with Jessica Jones. Like Luke Cage is like the easy one out of all this. Oh, you don't have a drinking problem. You're not trying to be a lawyer. You're literally just trying to do the right thing. Cool. And you have a legit superpower.
Extremely cool. And also like is not shitty to her, right?
Yeah.
Like is treats her like a human person, which we don't see in superhero narratives a lot. We don't like the normal people at the periphery of superhero stories are very often either the sort of like people who are being saved by heroes, which this is kind of at least medium what the book is about, but questionable how helpful that actually is, or people who are in some way expendable, like hench people. So you don't or I guess the sort of like heroic equivalent of hench people, right? So like Rosario Dawson's character, or Jessica Jones's neighbors. There are people who are
I
legit
loved her
trying to help.
neighbors.
Oh, absolutely. Like, who are trying to help and do the right thing, and the response is to treat them as a disposable, or just to be a terrible person in their general direction. Very rarely do we see situations where, they're like normal people are treated even decently by superheroes. And that's just kind of an accepted part of those narratives, and that's pretty messed up. Meanwhile, Wilson Fisk looks like the best fiance in the entire world, right? Like, treats you amazingly well. Anybody messes with you will break them into a million pieces. Has thoughts and opinions about art. Like, that sounds great.
Very cultured, actually. Like, despite the fact that yes, he is trying to run crime in Manhattan, he's also actually looking out for the neighborhood.
Yeah, and I mean, like, questionable, and like there's definitely conversations about gentrification that can be had there, but like,
Natalie,
if you actually add things up, but
I'm hearing you.
You're picking up what I'm putting down.
Oh, hell yeah, man. I was picking it up from like the first page. But Chroma in chat mentioned Spider-Man was probably the first superhero not portrayed as perfect. Yeah, dude, I have no idea how that guy keeps going. Oh, because he's a fictional character and he's not a normal person.
There's also like Spider-Man, right? There's the Spider-Verse now, right? That movie. But it's everything about that is so good. Movie. But for sure. But part of the reason that I think Spider-Man works, Spider-Man is like, if I had to pick like a superhero I actually like and would maybe choose to spend human time with, I think Spider-Man is pretty up there, because he does still have to maintain a normal life. And he does have to like either go to school or hold down a job or try and like interact with, he doesn't have all those layers of insulation, right? It's just him in a suit. And there's something that, kind of keeps him closer to his humanity because of that. I think. But I also think it's the reason that, like, part of the reason I think the Spider-Verse exists is that's too much for one person to handle.
Yeah.
Ultimately. And it's a thing that has to be kind of like passed along over time, or it also means that being Spider-Man is not Peter Parker's entire identity, right? Like, if Peter Parker is separated from Spider-Man, Peter Parker's fine, right? Like, sure, he'll probably need some therapy and it'll feel weird, but ultimately he's going to be able to carry on his functional life because he has one.
Let's be honest. If he lost his spiderness, he'd probably be better off.
He probably better off, and he's also a very good photographer. So it's not like he doesn't have a career to fall back on.
He's a photographer, and he's not quite like Tony Stark and Reed Richards level, but he's a super genius too.
Oh yeah, sure, like super bright, and definitely able to, but also like, I think unlike like Tony Stark was kind of useless in a like able to function in society kind of way before he became Iron Man, right? Like, he was already kind of lost to the winds, or at least lost to the money. But I think that because Spider-Man was a kind of like a person before and then got to be Spider-Man, he will still be a person after. And because he never sort of had that interruption where like suddenly now I don't have to deal with my own life anymore, there isn't that same kind of vast difference between being a person and being a superhero.
Yeah. Man, I had something that was going for me there thought-wise, but then I lost track.
Then it evaporated.
Yeah, it was something Spider-Man, something. Oh yeah, the interesting thing about Spider-Man 2 is that he could like just call up Tony and be like, "Hey Tony, you know how you've offered me a job like probably biannually since 1960, whatever? I'll finally take it." And he knows he
Yeah.
would have earned the job, but he still chooses to try and make it on his own.
Yeah,
And
and
that's
there's
awesome.
I also like, I kind of think, I'm really glad you brought that up, because I also think part of the like what makes Spider-Man Spider-Man, and what makes Spider-Man tolerable in a way a lot of other superheroes aren't, is he on some level recognizes that if he took Tony up on that job, he would no longer have that kind of connection to regular life that he presently has, right?
Yeah.
That it would be the beginning of being removed uh from humanity to a certain extent, and very quickly, like, wouldn't be somebody who does his own laundry anymore.
Yeah. He wouldn't just be
And
the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man from Queens.
exactly, like, you suddenly, a different thing is happening, and as soon as you are, you kind of remove Spider-Man from that context, he becomes a different, and I think less fun and certainly less pleasant and less human superhero.
Yeah.
More spider, less man.
Yeah. Well, you know, God, I feel like like none of this conversation has been off topic, but it's
Mhm,
like, man, it gives this wonderful lens to look at hench as well. You kind of touched on it earlier with the idea of henches and meat.
mhm,
But like the for the audience out there, if you haven't read the book yet, one, I highly recommend it, and two, I won't go into spoilers because one, there's so much meat to talk about with this
mhm,
book without touching on spoilers, and
mhm.
two, you guys know me, I don't do that. So
A
the
man of
story,
substance and culture.
well, look, like I see the argument on both sides of spoilers,
Mhm,
and I can understand it too from both perspectives. I prefer generally to go into things spoiler free, but at
mhm,
the same time, like the best example of this I can come up with is Blade Runner 2049. I
mhm.
went into that just completely spoiled, but it didn't matter because even though I
Mm.
knew like how it was going to end and everything, like the story that Denis Villeneuve told in that movie, I was like, no, that was a lie. That wasn't a spoiler. Like he made me believe, and then
Mhm.
to an extent, when you know that outcome, it's really fun to see how they get you there, you know, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I hear
yeah,
what you're saying. Like, I definitely went in unspoiled, and I'm glad that I did. But I do feel like with a certain kind of complicated narrative or mystery, um, knowing ahead of time can let you look for details that you might not have otherwise noticed.
yeah,
But in this particular case, I'm glad we will be going the no spoilers route.
yeah. Well, so the basics of the world that you created is that there are the good guys, the superheroes, and the draft, the like quasi governmental organization that handles the superheroes, and then you have the villains and their henches and the meat. And then henches are like the people who do like the office stuff, and the meat do the heavy lifting. Um, and so the main character is a temp hench. So like the complete bottom of the hench totem pole. And what incites the action of the book is she has a run in with the like Superman of your universe, Super
Mhm,
Collider, which
mhm.
is a very on the nose name for that hero because when he collides, it's super.
Ugh, yeah,
Um,
it goes pretty sideways pretty fast.
I mean, it went sideways. It went backwards. I'm talking about her femur.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Spiral fractures are not fun, kids.
I can. I am glad that I can only imagine, but at the same time, like, yeah, you wrote a great person recovering on a couch.
Thank you.
So Anna then spends a good portion of her recovery time writing the injury report, or
Mhm.
yeah, the injury report blog,
Yep.
where she breaks down the cost of every interaction between superheroes and the world, and like breaks down like a by the minute cost in human life, in money, and all of this stuff for superheroics. And it's a brilliant thing that like I can't believe that nobody in the main comic houses has ever really touched on, because they just kind of take it for granted that, you know, Superman while fighting Zod is going to like level a good like fifth of Metropolis, and you know,
Right,
but
and it's just those are just accepted losses, I guess.
yeah, and the only one who gives a shit is Batman, uh, which is true. Batman would give a shit. Um,
Batman is complicated for sure.
He absolutely is. And brief
Because
aside,
his
I will say that I think Ben Affleck is underrated, but only because he was in shitty movies.
that's that's fair. Batman unfortunately has some of the highest costs.
Oh, absolutely.
An aside is all the math in the book is real. The equations that Anna uses to measure the impacts of superheroes are drawn from real world equations that are used to calculate losses after natural disasters. And all her math checks out. And I know because I ran it. So yeah,
Nerd.
the
But
her research, I know the spreadsheets are out of this world. But the numbers she comes up with and the math that she runs is all real. It's not, just a made up thing. The citation in the book is real. It's from a real world research paper. Professor Elon Noy in New Zealand very generously allowed me to cite his work in the book.
I
Uh,
noticed. I was actually
mhm.
quite surprised to see a real citation in a work of fiction.
Well, it's I wanted it to make sense. Like I wanted it to work.
Yeah.
And there we have ways of measuring this. We have ways of measuring these kinds of huge impacts on different communities. And uh if we can measure an earthquake, or we can measure a hurricane, we can certainly measure a superhero, because their impacts on the communities are ostensibly there to protect, look very similar a lot of the time. So yeah, the it was important for me to have like a touchstone in reality, and also to make sure that the kinds of numbers I was using matched up to real life superhero encounters.
Yeah.
So I did go through a lot of comics and run those numbers on the deaths, the injuries, and the property damage that heroes cause, to get a sense of like what those look like, what the average numbers might be, what are Superman's numbers versus Batman's numbers versus Spider-Man's numbers, how do they all add up? And yeah, so that's how the way that the injury report works in the book is informed by all of that real life research.
Nice.
Mm,
God,
it's very
yeah.
dorky.
No, absolutely. And I mean, it's what helps sell that world too. I mean, it's just, like anybody can say that somebody sat down and ran a couple algorithms to figure out how much something costs. But like, there's a truth to how Anna goes about it. And that very clearly comes from you actually running the numbers. Now, did you do it with one of those like kind of translucent green visors with like the calculator with a big handle?
I
Uh,
wish, right? That'd be sick.
that would, if you went back in time and asked somebody else to do that, there would be somebody doing that. And like, I want to see
100%, yes.
like the prequel hench, where there is that person in the back in the 1950s going, these superheroes, they're up to no good. But
The like superhero Google Glass that shows you like a running ticker of every single
it's the
like
ticker in the
looking
glass
everywhere and
dome, and they
seeing
just pick up the
exactly.
paper, and there's like, oh god, just get away with it. Write the checks. You know, I am wondering though, because very clearly, the true orchestrator of all of this is the construction industry. Because they're the people who are benefiting from superheroics more than anyone else.
There's a really good like mob storyline there, I think, where you like, kind of like close that loop between like super heroic destruction and like, the mob owning a bunch of construction companies, or like, paying off politicians to win bids on like public works projects. Like I think you could close that loop very, very tidily if you wanted to explore something like that.
Well, I think we have a close for that in chat, because Chroma says there was a Batman story where Bruce made a fund to cover repairs for his antics, and a great way to keep refilling that fund would be if Wayne Enterprises also ran a construction business.
just loops right back around. Yeah, like here's the thing. Like, how much money does Bruce Wayne have? This is a real question. An impossible amount of money. Like, is he Jeff Bezos rich? Like, what are we talking about here? Because I've looked at Batman's numbers, friends. They're bad. They are really, really bad.
Which is amazing for a person with no powers.
It is his superpower is money, but there's money and trauma with the source of most superpowers in the world. Yeah, he goes a super long way where he's concerned, but he does so much damage. I can measure it and tell you what it is, but in fact, while we're talking, I might do this. I have a PowerPoint presentation, which I will not be queuing up for you right now. But I will be looking at one of my slides in order to
if you told me about the PowerPoint presentation, I'd have set up so we could do the PowerPoint presentation.
No, it definitely would have been included, right? So this is definitely one of those moments where, like, I don't know what you're talking about. I am in no way related to the protagonist in my book at all. But if you look at those numbers, what I typically did when I was kind of calculating the impact of a hero on their community was I looked at a lot of the year one comics, and I did that because they're kind of like they're like a good vertical slice, right? Like they're kind of a good core sample of activity, right? Like it's fairly early in someone's career as well, so like it won't be super extreme, but it kind of gives you an idea of what's going on there. So between the Scarecrow, the Doc Ock, the Superman, and the Batman, the way that you measure the impact of a disaster on a community is in something called daily units, or disability adjusted life years, often just referred to as life years. So literally, like, how many years of human life has that cost, either in like how much someone's life has been shortened by their injury or death, or how many annual salaries based on the median income of that area would it take to rebuild something that's been destroyed. So in the Scarecrow year one comic, he causes 1 life year worth of damage, and I'm rounding up there because someone is like held hostage for a little while, and I'm assuming that they need some therapy.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment.
Like I think that's reasonable. Like they might need to take a stress leave, but like for sure rounding up. Doc Ock, again, like rounding up, causes about 10. There's some injuries, no deaths, and there's a bit of damage to 1 government facility. The Doc Ock, on the other hand, is injured repeatedly, both in accidents and by heroes. In the same year one comic, or not the same year one comic, but also in their year one comics, Superman causes 183 life years worth of damage. And
Yeesh.
in his year one comic, Batman causes 408 life years.
Wait.
Worth
Are we
of damage.
talking the Frank Miller Batman year one, or are we talking Scott Snyder's 0 year?
Frank Miller's year one.
I'm not doubting your numbers, but that seems really high.
It does seem really high. I was very surprised too.
Yeah, because I'm trying to go through this all in my head right now, and it's like, I mean, one building gets destroyed, but that was the police's fault.
It's right, and I'm not counting things that the police did here.
Okay.
I am counting things that, like, if Batman pulled down this wall, that is Batman's fault for sure.
Yeah.
I am, however, counting injuries. And in that year one comic, it is directly stated that Batman has committed, like, it's just like a bubble, right? Like, it's a line of dialogue, but he's committed 78 assaults in the last X number of weeks. So that happens in that comic, right? It's like, it's stated, it's like, we the police are aware of 78 assaults that have happened in the last like 10 weeks or whatever. I don't know. So if what I did is I looked at all the assault incidents that happen like by Batman's hands across the comic. There are many of them. Looked at what the range was, like what was sort of like the most minor incident he caused versus the most severe, kind of picked somewhere in the middle and averaged it out. Because we don't see them on screen, but we know that they happened. And when you add all of that up,
it's bad.
It's bad. It's real bad. There's a surprising amount of spinal injuries. Also, and I know I've said this before in other conversations, but I would like to formally disabuse everyone of the notion that Batman doesn't kill people, because he absolutely does. You cannot tell me that Batman has not caused a severe spinal injury that 3 years later did not result in that person's death from a bed sore. Like, it's impossible. Like, law of average is impossible. So, and it turns out if you injure someone and later they die because of that injury, it's still murder on you. So if like you shoot someone and they're in the hospital and you're being charged with their assault and they die, suddenly those charges are upgraded, right? Because you are responsible for their death. So even if Batman throws somebody, like drops somebody down a fire escape, which he does repeatedly in the Frank Miller year one comic.
Yes. But he did catch that one kid.
He did catch the kid, but he doesn't catch the other guy.
No.
The other one. There's no way somebody hasn't, like, over the course of his career, like, broken their back and not been able to walk again, and then a bunch of years and, like, never recovered, and then eventually died of their injuries, or like got a staph infection in the hospital, like waiting for the plate in their like arm to heal, or head for that matter, right? So, and still still responsible for it. I'm sorry.
I'm not dissuading that at all. I'm completely agreeing, but I will say that this gives me one, if somebody said, hey, you have to live in a fictional like superhero city and your choices are like XYZ in Gotham, I wouldn't have picked Gotham to begin with by virtue of the Rogues Gallery. But now I find that Batman is quite possibly a worse security risk to my health than
I would argue
any of his villains.
I would argue provably worse to your health.
Well, it depends on who's writing the Joker, though, because sometimes he is like a complete citywide threat.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like the Joker is actually very difficult to measure, both because his incarnations change so dramatically, like you said, like depending on who's writing him. And also of all the characters, like all the villainous characters across comics, he's the one who feels the least human. Like the least like a person, and much more like I have a pet argument that I like to make that all of comics are basically just the fairy queen being told over and over again. Because I have a deep background in English literature, and the fairy queen is all about ideas becoming people, right? So like every character is an allegory for an idea. So like, what if virtue was a person, and what if hope was a person, and temptation was a person, and letting them all interact as human beings in a space, which is sort of what heroes are, right? It's like, what if you had the personification of justice? What if you had the personification of vengeance? What if you had like these ideas made into people? And I think over time we've become like, I've certainly become less patient with that, and I'm much more interested in like the humanity of those characters. And I think we're getting more and more human stories because of that same kind of impatience. But the Joker feels to me like one of the characters who has become the least human over time. If anything, he's become more inhuman, like no longer just like somebody in clown makeup, but like an actual agent of chaos.
Yeah.
Which I think is actually quite interesting. But it that does make it very difficult to kind of pin down like what that impact is, because again, like he seems to transform every time he's written.
Yeah. That is absolutely true. And you look at the movie personifications too. I mean, you
Totally different.
Jack Nicholson. I'm going to throw Mark Hamill in here because his Joker is the Joker. And if you disagree with me, you're wrong.
Nope. I 100% agree with you.
Heath Ledger is a very, very close second, though.
Heath Ledger was an amazing Joker for sure.
He was, because Mikey Newman, Movies with Mikey, the YouTube channel Film Joy, if you haven't seen it, he did this excellent video essay on The Dark Knight, in which he basically argues that the movie wasn't actually about, or the title wasn't in reference to Batman, but was instead in reference to the Joker. And I'm not going to try and like sum up his argument because I can't, but it's definitely worth a watch, and it's very compelling. But it's, and you know, then you go through the years in like the comics, and I mean, like Scott Snyder writes like a really weird Batman, and I really kind of dig it. Jeff Loeb writes a completely different, you know, Joker, and it's just, it's all over the place.
It's all over the place. Yeah, but I mean, like I like it when characters transform in different people's hands. Like I really like that. You know, that those reinterpretations, because like a thing about hero comics, like the, you know, especially the kind of bigger ones that are almost like they belong to the world, you know what I mean? We all have relationships to these characters, is that when you hand them off to a different writer, and you kind of you make room inside of that character for a different kind of story. And I really, really like that. I like that we can kind of you know, tell stories even if the costume stays the same, the person under it might change, or you know, it may, you know, on that seem to be the same person, but you can explore a completely different aspect of their personality, or they're just you know, different in this incarnation of the multiverse or whatever. And I think that all of that that space that superheroes provide is really cool.
Yeah. Well, God, we have just like kind of gone all over this list of questions that I had, which is perfectly fine. Like if this was a legit late night show, there would have been a director in my ear going, "Tom, cut her off,
Yeah.
you know, but we're not. This is my show, and it goes the way I want it.
You get to do what you want.
Yeah, pretty much, man. I get to do what I want. I get to book the guests I want to talk to, you know, and then I mean, I get to ask the guests I want to have on my show, and sometimes they say yes. There are a few other authors I want to have on here too. You're my second author. The other one is a friend of mine that I've known for, like 7 years now, 7.5 years. And he wrote I forget the exact name of it, but it's the D&D Choose Your Own Adventure books. They just came out in audiobook earlier this summer.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and he's such a cool dude. Like, I love that guy. because like he lives in well, I'm not going to say exactly where because privacy, Wisconsin.
Because of the earth, yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, like I haven't run into him since I've been here because he's far enough away that you don't just run into those people. But like he was, when I moved up here a few years ago, he's one of those people that's kind of like helping me learn the ropes of Wisconsin and, you know, like,
That's nice.
Yeah. You know, because he's not originally from Wisconsin either. So he's all like, hey, you know, like help you out, like do this thing. Don't order this. Don't forget fish fry. Don't forget to find a cheese castle, you know, regular Wisconsin things.
Incredible. Why do I not live where there's a cheese castle?
I mean, like, I don't know. I don't. Oh, wait, because we're south of that border that you don't want to go south of right now.
Right. No.
And we don't have government provided healthcare or a lot of things.
The healthcare is very good.
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
I'm a big fan of that one. But well, there's a couple last questions I have for you here.
Sure. Yeah.
The big one here is when you took this to agents and publishers and all that, in my mind, this was a tough sell.
It surprisingly was not. So I was very fortunate to have an agent. I had a pre-existing relationship with Ron Eckel at the Cook Agency. He's somebody I met almost a decade ago and has been with me for a very long time, and has always been in my corner. He saw very early drafts of Hench, and when I kind of dropped the manuscript on him, kind of like early fall 2018. It was like, I wrote this thing. I don't know. I showed you like a few thousand words of it like 3 years ago, but I finished it. What do you think? And he came back to me a couple of months later and said, like, I think, with a round of edits, we can sell this. Like, I think we can. So he was from the first moment, like, so into it and so like incredibly supportive and really hit the ground running with me. We did a very complex round of edits. He had, second readers at his agency super help us out. And then during when he took it to market, like, had some great conversations with a lot of editors, and I was very lucky in that the response was really positive, and ended up working with David Pomerico at HarperCollins. He's head of Harper Voyager, but he actually read it, and we submitted it to Harper Voyager, and he read it and said, like, I think this should be on a different imprint. I want to edit it, but I actually think this should be on like a William Morrow, as a William Morrow release, because it just feels like a different kind of thing. And he championed that book from the first moment, and he was like super, super into it. So, yeah, I'm very happy to say not at all. Like it surprising.
Dude, I'm happy to hear not at all.
Oh yeah, it went so well. Better than I ever would have dreamed it going. Yeah. But yeah, everybody, it ended up in the right hands, and it ended up in the hands of people who really loved it and who were absolute champions.
Nice. Well, and there are two remaining questions. One's kind of like a silly one, and I'll just throw that one at you right now. Do you think Hench would make a better movie or like season on a streaming service?
TV show, unquestionably.
But I think that like, if you had to make it a movie, you could you could boil Hench down to 2 hours if you had to.
Oh, don't get me wrong. Yeah. Like if that opportunity were to mystically present itself, like I wouldn't be like, I don't think so. I will keep you in mind.
We'll keep with the normal Hollywood way of taking a wonderful piece of work written by a woman and have a relatively mediocre dude rewrite it.
Just completely rewrite it. So Anna's suddenly like a guy, like everybody's white and
I'm
straight.
not kidding. As I was going through this, I was like I was thinking, and I was just like, all right, cool. Like, if this had to be a movie, who are the characters you would cut? What are like some of the things you would do? And at no point did I ever think that Anna would not be a badass woman in charge. Because
I appreciate that.
That's who she is. Because it's, like a dude can't be Anna. Because there's a lot of like what's going on where it's like in the story, it's where people undersell her because she's a woman, and a guy isn't going to pull that same kind of like nobody, like people will believe it because it's a movie and people always believe that shit. But like the people who know are going to sit down and be like, no, there's no fucking way that this guy who's legitimately intelligent is being second guessed. Like,
right. But I also think it's important that like people do believe her, right? Like she does have people on her side, and she certainly, as she kind of takes ownership of whatever power she does kind of come into, people around her do respond to that and often respond to it really positively. So there's, I wanted to, it was very important to me that the primary source of conflict in the book not be around her gender or sexuality. That was a thing that existed in the world, but it wasn't the crux of conflict around her. At the same time that like she experiences shit like all of us do, but it's not the primary thing that's going on.
And then I also like tried to cast characters in my head because the first supervillain that we run into is the Electric Eel, or E, as he likes to be called. And he's described as a person who really cares about the feelings of everyone that works for him. And the moment I read that and the first line he says to Anna, I was like, holy shit, this is Jeff Goldblum. Like, I'm just imagining Jeff Goldblum in like a superhero outfit coming up and being like, yes. How was your work going today? And
he could do the voice, right? Like, I can hear it. I can hear it in my head.
Yeah. And then my personal favorite character in the book is Keller. And he is Tom Hardy.
Oh shit. That's
it took
really
a long
interesting.
time to get there. But then I saw him like looking like real scruffy, and I was like, holy shit, that's Keller.
Yeah, that could do it.
Because he's got the linebacker, like, because you describe him as, like a former linebacker who could still play. And I'm like, yo, that's Tom Hardy.
I could see that. I could totally see that. He's got such crazy range and is like so profoundly like weird in the way that he inhabits a lot of characters that I think that he do a really good job.
I love Keller. Yeah, I strangely think Keller would probably be the most normal character he's played.
Yeah.
Because
I think that's fair. That's fair.
And then the other one, Leviathan, who was like my second favorite character in the book, Idris Elba.
Oh, that's good. That's a good suggestion. Because again, like voice stuff in particular.
Like,
very cool stuff.
Like, and we know from Star Trek Beyond, which is not the worst of the modern Star Trek movies, that he can play a villain in a mask and still command Idris Elba respect.
Absolutely. And have that. No, that's that like is not, I'm very bad at like fan casting my own characters because I see them as them. So it's like difficult for me to kind of pull that apart. But I can see that. That's really cool.
Leviathan is really just like Luther pushed too far.
He's more like Paradise Lost Satan, I think, than he is Luther. But
your classic
but I see it.
English literature is.
Listen,
your game is strong. Mine is not.
It's all right. I have the true editing story. So there's a Paradise Lost reference in the book, and my editor was like, I really like this, but is this too much? Like, is this on the nose? And I'm like, well, I have a half sleeve of Gustave Doré's Lucifer Falling tattooed on my arm. So I don't feel like this is too much, but perhaps my internal compass is broken. And he was definitely like, no, never mind, it's perfect, leave it in. I see where you're coming from. It's fine.
Your literary half sleeve has a lot more street cred than mine. I have the Red October.
Heck no, that's really cool though. Yeah, that's really cool.
It absolutely is. And like, don't get me wrong, I adore it. I love it. And every now and then I still wake up and I go, oh yeah, I did sit down for like 20 hours and get my arm scribbled on by a stranger in Illinois.
Tattoos are a weird thing to do.
They do. I gotta get like a tattoo round table or something. Get some people like I'm trying to get tattoo artists on the show because like, I mean, you and I are both heavily tattooed individuals. And whenever we get tattoos, we have a tendency to start talking back and forth. Like, yo, get a tattoo. And I'm like, send me pictures. Yeah. And it's just, because, that's a whole show in and of itself.
Absolutely.
And then the last like normal question I have for you is, and this is the most like selfish of them all, is are there any plans for like a follow-up sequel offshoot weird thing? And like if you can't say anything, I understand, but I need to know.
I've started working toward one, is the thing that I can for sure say. I don't have any more, like, I'm not even being like I can't talk about a thing. It's like literally I don't know. So I don't know what the future holds yet.
Well, in fairness, I mean the book did just come out.
It just came out, but I would love there to be a sequel, right? Like I think that there's a lot more to explore in this universe. There's a lot more to explore with these characters.
Yeah,
I
the
would
Auditor's
love to spend more
adventure
time
is
with
not
them.
over.
No, very, very much not. And I'd love to have more time and space to explore that. I also think that like there are stories in the larger henchverse that are worth telling, that there are like other hench folk, who deserve their time in the sun. And I think that like having space to do that would be rad.
I would be so down for like a Melinda novella. Because Melinda's a pro driver, and so she shows up in like one of the first scenes of the book and gets picked up to be like full-time driver, and like she's a recurring character and lovely, wonderful person, and just like I want like the Fast and the Furious superhero story.
I'm here for this. Like I want the like hench person getaway driver, like also I want Melinda's life like pre the book is pretty interesting too. It's not fully explored in my head, but I think that like watching her go from again like temp to where she ends up would be a very cool arc. And so much happens off screen with Quantum Entanglement, who's a character I also super love and would love to spend more time with. And we don't see any of that. Like it's not relevant to this arc, but being able to kind of like dig into that a bit and show like all that off screen stuff, or not even some of it, would I think be really cool.
Yeah, no, Quantum Entanglement was I don't want to say anything because so much of it would be spoilery. But I have feelings.
you have emotions about how some things went.
I have thoughts and feelings about that character and how
how some things go.
And
I would imagine.
Oh my god. Yeah. There are like The Boys is real messed up in some ways, but like man, you need help.
My partner, every once in a while I'll write something and he'll be like, I have to sleep next to you. I have to close my eyes and go to bed.
Are you sure that's what he says? Is it more like isn't it more probably along the lines of like I would like to sleep at any point in the rest of my life?
Well, exactly. Yeah. Like, and if you're present, that may, just thinking about stuff like this. I think, by the way, there's some body horror in the book, everybody.
Oh yeah.
That's
Cronenberg would
that's
be pleased.
Thank you. I'm honored, but it's not, we have ordinary, soft, frail, human squishy bodies, and superheroes don't. And when those things interact, it's not great.
Look, there's one part in particular in the book where Brundlefly would have been like, this might be too much.
Thank you.
I
moved.
It has been super awesome to sit here and finally like legit talk to you about the book because I love it.
Oh, this has been great.
Well, we're not done yet though.
Ooh.
There's one bit left, a little thing that I like to call the 5 questions.
Ooh.
Now, the 5 questions are a series of, 5 questions that I prepared before the show that have nothing to do whatsoever with anything we've talked about so far.
Nice. Okay.
So are you ready?
I'm prepared. Yes.
Okay. Question number 1. What is your favorite movie?
The Two Towers.
Word.
I love a good siege.
That was a great siege. I also love a good rousing speech, and Theoden gives the best ones.
Really, really does. Yeah, and I'm sure there are like man. Now that I've said that, Mad Max is incredible and might be up in the same category. Like, you know what I mean? Like they're right there. And if I was, 15 years younger, I would have said Tremors, but that was what came first from my heart.
I have watched
I let the answer stand.
All 6 Tremors movies.
Incredible.
The 7th one is coming out later this year.
Oh my God.
I am so excited. That said though, the first one, for being like 20 years old at this point, stands up amazingly well.
I love that movie. I don't even care.
Oh, dude, that movie's so good. Like, it's not even like, it's like, it's not even a guilty pleasure. That's just a quality monster movie.
And like, what a good monster.
Yeah. And then like too, it's like, I could go on and on about this, but I'm going to do it really quick. But like movies from the tail end of the 80s through about 97, 98-ish did the best job of doing like realistic and exposition, because they work. Yeah,
no, that's fair.
Yeah, because they build everything up as though it's a normal like joke and conversation, where it's like the whole like, oh, Earl stampede, and he's all like, and it's just like you get from that interaction like Earl's got a problem there. He's been
right. Yeah, Earl's
seen some shit.
Seen some things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And nowadays it would just been like, if something like that happened, it'd be like they'd go to get like a beer at Chang's and they'd be all like, oh, what's up with Earl? And then like Chang would be all like, oh, back in '64 he was involved in this and this and this and this, and it's just like, that's not fun. Like, we don't need to know what the problem is. We just need to know it's there. We need, as the audience, need to feel it.
Environmental storytelling.
Yeah, that's why Dark Souls is excellent, even though I'm terrible at it. Yeah. Okay, so back on topic. Question number 2. What is your favorite sport to watch?
MMA.
Okay, cool. I can get behind that.
I watch like a lot of mixed martial arts. In fact, the injury report is titled after a thing that comes out a couple days after a fight, which is like, or an event, which is like, this is the injury report. This is what what happened to everybody. Like, is their nose broken? Is there, like, this person like fractured a rib and therefore has to train no contact for the next 12 weeks or whatever. It's a thing that comes out, and I find it's I have like a secondary sport that I play while watching MMA, which is like spot the injury. Like, can I watch a fight and be like, that dude just broke his orbital bone, and then when the injury report comes out, I find out if I'm right.
Dude, I don't watch a lot of MMA, but I did see the hit that broke Ronda Rousey's jaw.
Oof.
Dude, that was brutal.
Oh, dude. Oh, it's so bad.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah. Like, I love the idea of MMA, and I love that we're seeing movie action get more MMA-ish.
Totally.
Which like feels realer, but
getting punched in the face sucks, man.
Yeah, that's a though, man. John Wick rules the action scenes right now.
100%, yes.
All right, question number 3. What is your favorite show?
Oh, man. Like, of all time.
I mean, like, I know that's a hard one, and I know
it's a hard one. Yeah. It might be Farscape. It may be Farscape.
Why can't you live closer and we can hang out?
Like, all of the time. Yeah, that's like, that is up there.
Therese was so sure. Right. We are like, did we just become best friends?
Did we? I think we just did. Yeah, I'm gonna go with that. I'm gonna go with Farscape for now. Like Batman the Animated Series, like, is also up there. Dude, and I'm sure I'm not thinking of things right now, but I think it's Farscape.
Dude, I loved Farscape. I wish I never actually finished it, unfortunately. And I know it's somewhere to stream. I just haven't looked for it. But I also, like, in that same like programming block, I was a big SG-1 fan. And by I'm a big SG-1 fan.
DS9, also excellent.
Dude, Therese finally started watching that this year.
Oh my God. It's
I know.
Klingon War, Cardassian War, like, so incredible.
The best villain in Star Trek history with Gul Dukat.
Unquestionably, Gul Dukat is like so profoundly creepy. Oh, yeah. and great and yeah.
Like, I will go so far as to say that I feel that Picard best embodies what it means to be a captain in Starfleet. But I think Sisko's the best.
100% agree. Like, Sisko's an incredible captain, but more than a captain, like I think Picard is a great, I think you nailed it, like a Starfleet captain, whereas Sisko is a different kind of leadership and a different kind of, like,
Cisco's the frontier leader, the guy who has to play fast and loose with the law,
but like has a profound moral center.
Yeah. Oh God, I forget the name of the episode, but the one where him and Garrick team up to get the Romulans in the war.
Oh my God.
It's just like
I love Garrick. I love Garrick so much.
Like him, like the bromance between him and Bashir is the best.
Yes.
I mean,
100%. Also, Bashir and O'Brien's friendship is one of my favorite on-screen friendships in the entire world. It's just like, off to go LARP, guys. Like, see you later in our weird costumes. Like,
and the best thing is, they start out hating each other, and they don't actually become really friends until the episode where probability gets all screwed up and they're playing racquetball against each other. And it's just like,
and they're like, wait a minute, you're great.
They're like, wait, did we just become friends over a never-ending game of racquetball? Why, yes, we did. Now let's play darts. God, they were incredible. Dude, that, like, and the cast was just so perfect. Like, Kira was excellent. I enjoyed both Daxes. Yes. Odo. Yeah. Like,
Worf is great, man.
Dude, he was better on DS9 than anything else he's in.
Agreed.
Like, because they gave, like, in, like, DS9 allowed characters to really grow, and and like, and that's not a fault of Next Gen, because Next Gen was built on the formula of the original show, which is basically Monster of the Week kind of thing.
Yep.
And if Next Gen had come out like roughly at the same time as DS9 and they had been able to do cool stuff like that, dude, Next Gen could have been like just head and shoulders so much higher than it was. But
Totally.
Like, God, DS9 was so good. Also, General Martok is my dude.
General Martok rules.
Yeah. Dude, that guy's metal as fuck.
100%.
And
Absolutely.
And
he doesn't need an eye.
Fine. No, and he doesn't even like rub your face in it either. He's just like you talk to like General Martok and you're just like, holy shit, this guy's a badass.
Absolutely.
And he's just as likely to like punch you as he is to give you like the craziest bear hug of all time.
Yep. Possibly with equal affection in both cases.
Yeah, as we learned in Next Generation, sometimes it's knowing when not to duck when a Klingon throws a punch.
Oh, that's good. That's actually very good.
So, question number 4. What's your favorite foreign language?
That's an interesting one.
I will say, though, that Klingon is pretty up there for one of mine.
Klingon's up there. I mean, I'm probably Russian. I think it sounds badass. My grandmother, like my maternal grandparents, I should say, are Russian, and I heard it spoken a lot as a kid, and I wish I knew more of it. But there's something about the like melody and sound of the language that is still really beautiful.
It is, and it also has this weird, like, kind of almost Frenchness to it. Like, because
there's yeah, like pronunciation wise.
Yeah, it's interesting because like it's not French, absolutely, but just the way a few words come out, it's just like you all really paid attention during like the 18th century.
Yeah, there's a kind of a melodicness, I think, that both languages share.
Yeah, it was like, Catherine the Great knew what was up. But all right. Well, question number 5. What is the worst purchase you've ever made?
The worst
You're
purchase.
the first person to get this question, actually. It was submitted by an audience member in the Discord. And it got added to my list, and I have a big list of like 50 some questions, and I just use a random number generator to pick my questions for the show.
That's good. That's really good. I haven't made a lot of terrible purchases in my life.
That must be nice.
I haven't had a lot of money. So here's the thing, like when you're kind of broke, you don't really like drop a ton at on all at once. I've definitely bought like new docks that I'm like, wait a minute, I hate this. Like I don't actually want to break these in for a year. This is terrible. Or something like that. But I can't say that I've ever made a purchase where I'm like, this is actually I deeply regret doing this. Oh, you know what? This is circumstantial, maybe. So, but I did buy a year in advance my tickets to PAX for 2008. I went in 2007 with my husband at the time, and we had such a blast that we like took advantage of the super early bird, like while you're here, buy next year's ticket thing. And we divorced before PAX ever came around. So both those passes and that airfare was never used by me. So I guess that maybe, but.
Well, that is one heck of a weird circumstance.
Yeah, but it's not like the fault of the object.
Oh, no. But I mean, but when we purchase something, it's not just the object too. It's like,
It's the whole
it's
thing.
who we were at the moment of the purchase, and sometimes who we were idiots,
Very.
and sometimes they were just caught up in the moment.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this was definitely a case where like the person a year later was very different from the person who made that purchase and therefore could not actually take advantage of that thing in the way that would have been really cool.
Well, here's hoping that there are many PAXs in your future.
Thank
with
you.
With friends,
Yeah.
Yeah. No more husbands, but
not that one anyway.
Well, Natalie, it has been an absolute blast to talk with you today.
This has been so lovely,
dude. Like, wherever you want to come back on, I'll find an excuse to have you back.
That sounds great.
Well, I've been blasting your Twitter there on that fun little box right in front of you. Is there anywhere else people should go to stay up to date with all things Hench and whatever you may or may not be working on next?
Twitter is probably the best place to find me. I'm probably there the best, though I'm most places. Natalie, if you see a Natalie Z, it is most likely me. Places on the internet. I have a website that's nataliewallshots.com that has some of the kind of bigger announcement stuff, but generally speaking, I think Twitter is the best place to find me.
Cool. And if any of you guys are watching on YouTube, 1, thank you for making it this far. 2, all of that information is going to be linked down in the description down below. And while you're there, if you wouldn't mind hitting the subscribe button, maybe that thumbs up, and give that bell a little ring on your way down there, that would be greatly appreciated. Well, Natalie, it has been awesome having you on the show. I will talk with you in just a moment here, but I have to make a switch over to this camera and say thank you, everybody, for watching. It means the world to me that you guys are out there each and every day watching the show, especially on days like today where I get completely caught up off track talking about really silly shit with a friend of mine. So thank you all so much for joining us. The rest of the schedule for this week is kind of like I'm recording shows, but I don't know exactly when I'm going to be live with them. I know it's a great way to maintain an audience. I am like dead on it, guys. But keep an eye on my Twitter. We'll have that all sorted out. So until next time, please remember to wear that mask, drink some water, have some vitamins, and be kind to each other. Because I will say this every damn day because I believe it. Because the only way we're getting through all this is together. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you on the next episode of That Tom Clancy Show. Have a great night.